This evening, I would like to look at cancer, which is a challenge out there today. You know what's really neat? Cancer is 100% healable. Would you like to take notes? There's 4 things I can guarantee you that it's 100% healable. Would you like to know those 4 things? Number 1, accept Jesus as your Savior every day. Not just when you're 8 years old. Number 2, become really good friends with him. You know, when Jesus comes, the Bible says that he says that people will say, I did this or I did that. And you'll say, I didn't know you. You didn't spend time with me. So number 2, spend time with him. Number 3, if you've done something wrong, ask for forgiveness, whether it's of someone else or whether it's of God. You need to do both. And number 4, read the Bible, spend time in prayer. If the Bible says to do something, do it. If it says not to do it, don't do it. And the Bible tells us with those 4 things, God will guarantee 100% healing from cancer. Now, he doesn't say when he will, but he will, whether it's now or when Jesus comes. And that's good news, y'all. That is excellent news. You know, as I talk with people who don't believe in God, they have no hope. They have no hope after death, but you and I do. We have that blessed hope of resurrection. And the big question is, why? You know, why do I work with a person who has the same diagnosis and we do the same treatment, but there's 2 different outcomes? The question is, why does one person live and one person doesn't? And that's a hard question. And I believe it's like when we answer our children or our grandchildren, and they say, why, granddaddy? Or why, daddy? And I like that because I want them to learn. But there's some times when a 5-year-old just doesn't need to hear something. 1, they may not understand it. Or 2, they just don't need to hear it right now at that age. And as a parent or as a grandparent, we tell that child, you've got to just trust me. And someday I'll explain it to you. And that's exactly what God does. He says, when we ask him, why did we have that negative outcome that we did not want? He says, trust me. When you get to heaven, I'll explain it to you. Because right now you have a finite mind, not an infinite mind. And so you say, but Walt, I want healing now. I want something I can do now. Well, we're going to take a look at that. One of the challenges people do is when they work with cancer, they have tunnel vision, and they only think of right now. So let's say that you're 68 years old and you've been diagnosed with cancer. Well, you might have 20 more years on this earth. Or like my wife, when she was diagnosed with cancer back when she was, how old was she? Probably 40. Mary Lou was, let me think here now. She was in her mid 40s, probably 45. She got breast cancer. And so let's say from 40 to 85, another 40 years. And so, yes, you want to do as much as you can to address that issue right now, but don't put all your eggs in one basket, because you have 100% in the other basket. And we can spend eternity with God. So as we look at cancer, we want to look at what do we need to do to have healing spiritually for eternity. But yes, let's not ignore the current time, and let's see what we can do through God's blessing. And if he chooses, as he did my wife, to provide healing. And now she's 15 years, no cancer. But don't just put all your eggs in one basket and just do what so many people do and just focus on now. And if God chooses now not to heal, if you're not ready spiritually, you lost out on eternity. And I think that's very important. Well, let's go to the screen and let's take a look here. If I can share some items with y'all. Attacking cancer. All right. Okay, cancer statistics. Now, as we know, the government is not really speedy on getting statistics. And so these numbers are for about 2020. We don't know what 2022 was yet, and it can take them a little while on statistics. But this is 2020. Is estimated national expenditure for cancer care in the United States in 2020 was about $158 billion. In future years, costs are likely to increase as the population ages and cancer prevalence increases. Costs are also likely to increase as new and often more expensive treatments are adopted as standards of care. Now, notice this is 2020 estimated, and we know that in 2020 we had something come up called coronavirus, and we know 2021, 22, we saw a significant increase in cancer amongst young people because of coronavirus. And that's not even the normal statistics, what we saw before. So we expect to see it higher. In 21, there's an estimated 1.9 million new cancer cases diagnosed, 1.9 million new people in 2021 diagnosed with cancer, and 608,560 approximate cancer deaths that year. That's a lot of people. Cancer is a term used for disease in which abnormal cells divide without control and are able to invade other tissue. Cancer cells can spread to other parts of the body through the blood and lymph systems. Now, let me share something new, some new information here that I haven't put in here yet, and I need to put. A buddy of mine, North Carolina, called me not long ago, and he said, Walt, and I get real excited about new science and new things that come out, and he called me and he says, we just found out that the mitochondria actually affects cancer spread. And he says, we found that when you eat after 2:30 in the afternoon, that the mitochondria actually changes even in its looks, but especially it changes the spreadability of cancer. So as we look at cancer cells can spread through other parts of the body, through the blood and lymph system, the mitochondria is a new area that we're looking at, which we can see cancer spread. Cancer is not just one disease, but many diseases. There are more than 100 different types of cancer, according to the National Cancer Institute. Most cancers are named for the organ or type of cell in which they start. For example, cancer that begins in the colon is called colon cancer. Cancer types can be grouped into broader categories. The main categories of cancer include carcinoma. That's a cancer that begins in the skin or in tissues that line or cover internal organs. There are a number of subtypes of carcinoma, including adenocarcinoma, basal cell carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, and transitional cell carcinoma. Sarcoma, cells that begin in the bone, cartilage, fat, muscle, blood vessels, or other connective or supportive tissue. Leukemia, cancer that starts in blood-forming tissue, such as the bone marrow, and causes large numbers of abnormal blood cells to be produced and enter the blood. Melanoma, cancers that begin in the cells of the immune system. Central nervous system cancers that begin in the tissues of the brain and spinal cord. All cancers begin in cells, the body's basic unit of life. To understand cancer, it's helpful to know what happens when normal cells become cancer cells. The body is made up of many types of cells. These cells grow and divide in a controlled way to produce more cells as they need to keep up with the body's health. Now, God is very systematic, and God's system is very structured. But Satan does not like systems. He likes chaos. And in his systems, things don't systematic. But these cells, the body is made up of many types of cells. These cells grow and divide in a controlled way, systematic, very controlled, God is controlled, to produce more cells as they need to keep up the body, to keep the body healthy. When cells become old or are damaged, they die and are replaced with new cells. That's the normal system by which God structured after sin. However, sometimes this orderly process goes wrong. The genetic material, DNA, of a cell can become damaged or changed, producing mutations that affect normal cell growth and division. And this is where my friend was telling me, he said, Walt, we thought it was just in the DNA that this happened, but now we're finding it's in the mitochondria this is happening. When this happens, cells do not die when they should, and new cells form when the body does not need them. The extra cells may form a mass of tissue. Not all tumors are cancerous. Tumors can be benign or malignant. Benign tumors aren't cancerous. They can often be removed, and in most cases, they don't come back. Cells in benign tumors do not spread to other parts of the body. Malignant tumors are cancerous. Cells in the tumor can invade nearby tissue and spread to other parts of the body. The spread of cancer from one part of the body to another is called metastasis, or metastasis, or isn't that terrible? I can't think of the word I'm looking for. We'll continue. Some cancers do not form tumors. For example, leukemia is a cancer of the bone marrow and blood. Metastasize, that's the word I was looking for. 3 top cancer killers in men: lung, prostate, colon, and rectum. We call now colorectal cancer a lot. Risk factors: smoking. Secondhand smoke also increases the risk of lung cancer. So it's not just, there's 3 types of smoke I look at. I look at the smoke of where a person breathes it straight into the lungs. And then there's secondhand smoke. That's when the smoker exhales and those carcinogenic, the carcinogenic smoke is exhaled back into the air. Or there's side stream smoke, and that's the smoke that comes off the cigarette or the cigar or the pipe. That's side stream smoke. All 3 can cause lung cancer. Genetics: certain gene mutations and family history of lung cancer. Exposure to radon and asbestos. People say, I have lung cancer, but I've never smoked in my life. It's true, you can. Radon, asbestos. Risk factors for prostate. Next is prostate cancer. Men over 50, with most cases being in men over 65. Family history: having close family members, grandfather, father, brother, who have had prostate cancer. Race: black males are more likely to develop prostate cancer than white males. High-fat diet. Duke University, and this was probably 1991, Duke University came out and said that men who drink dairy are much more prone to having prostate issues. Well, when I took nutrition from Cornell University, I learned that, and I came off a dairy farm as a boy. But Cornell University and Cambridge University out of England, their research found that dairy, and I'm quoting from the text Diseases of Affluence from Cornell University, dairy is the most significant chemical carcinogen ever discovered. Did you hear that? Dairy is the most significant chemical carcinogen ever discovered. So I'm not surprised. A high-fat diet, which could be high fats in oils and meat and dairy, can make men more prone to prostate cancer. Obesity. And we see the issue of obesity increasing significantly in the United States. And even as I go to other countries, such as Africa, I go to Rwanda and I work in Rwanda. And as I look at the men outside of Kigali, very slender, and they eat a very simple diet. And the men in Kigali, I'm seeing more and more obesity in Kigali as they're going to places like McDonald's and fast foods and a lot of donuts and foods like that. Colorectal cancer, risk factors, 90% of the cases occur in people over 50 years of age. Genetic mutations, certain genetic mutations can cause colorectal cancer. Family history, having close family members, grandfather, father, brother, who have had colorectal cancer. Physical inactivity and obesity. Having a diet high in red or processed meat. Now let's dive a little deeper into here. I would like to say that genetic predisposition many times, not always, but many times can be a misdiagnosis. Why? I've had discussions with physicians till the cows come home that if someone's grandfather smokes and gets lung cancer, their father smokes and gets lung cancer, and they smoke and get lung cancer, these medical doctors will argue with me that this is genetic predisposition. I can go into the school system, which I do often, and as I teach every month in the school system, teaching kids lifestyle medicine, I teach them about cause and effect. And you can have a kindergartner saying, well, mister, you got lung cancer because you smoked. And that's just horse sense, common sense. Now let's take a look here. As we look at, we say genetic mutations, but what about, and we look at family history. Let's look at family history here. What if many times family, what family does? Your family teaches you habits. Maybe your family's not that active. Maybe your family has a diet that's not that healthy. My great-grandmother she was from Mississippi, and she made a granola that was the best granola I've ever eaten. Now, my wife, who's not from Mississippi, she's from on the other side of the Mason-Dixon line. She will never make me that granola that my great-grandmother would make, because she said it's deadly. She says, look at the ingredients in that granola. It's deadly. So my grandmother, when she would make green beans, that's the daughter-in-law of that great-grandmother, who also grew up a lot in Mississippi. Other part was in Tennessee. And when she would make green beans, she didn't put hog jowl or chitlins or bacon or bacon grease, but she did put over 1 cup of vegetable oil, which was not healthy. And so as my mother learned from her mother learned from her mother and her mother-in-law, sometimes we eat what our family eats. Sometimes we have the same exercise behaviors. Just as if our parents smoke, we're more prone to smoke. If our parents exercise, we're more prone to exercise. If they're not, we're less prone to exercise. And so families that are inactive, obese, families that eat consume a lot of processed meats and a lot of red meat. It could just because your family eats it. It could be family. It could be the Smiths predisposed or the Johnsons predisposed, if that makes sense. I had problems of high cholesterol. And the doctors at work told me, they said, Walt, look at your daddy, look at your granddaddy. You've got to go on a statin drug. And I knew I didn't want to take a statin drug. So I decided to go on a no added cholesterol diet. And my cholesterol went from 288 to 104. I was not genetically predisposed. I was East Tennessee predisposed because my kinfolk, most of my kinfolk are from East Tennessee, and I ate like an East Tennessean. And so as we look at family history, look at what your family history, look at their lifestyle. If they had a poor lifestyle, go to a healthy lifestyle, and there's a good chance that you can move away from this, what's called genetic predisposition. Cancer killers that kill lung cancer, breast cancer, colorectal cancer, risk factors, smoking, genetics, exposure to radon and asbestos seems very familiar there, breast cancer, age, women 50 or older, family history, breast tissue density, women with higher breast tissue density are more prone to it. My brother for many years worked in X-ray, and he spent a lot of time in mammography and working with mammography equipment, and he said this is exactly true. Radiation, women who have had high doses of radiation to the chest area from medical procedures, never giving birth or having birth later in life. Physical inactivity or obesity. These issues risk factor of breast cancer. There's another item that I have found over the years. It's interesting, a good friend of mine in California who worked a lot with breast cancer, and as I've talked with other folks who work in cancer treatment, they tell me this is very interesting. A lady can come to me with breast cancer, and I'll ask them, do you have anything that you have not let go of that someone has done to you in your life? Could have been a school teacher. It could have been a sibling. It could have been a prior marriage. It could have been an old boyfriend. Who knows? But if it's something they've hung on to, they've obsessed over, they haven't forgiven that person. Many times we see the treatment for breast cancer effective. And when that person finally forgives that person, we can see marked difference in the treatment on that person. I don't understand it. And I've asked my buddies who are physicians to explain that to me. And they, who have also noticed it, they don't have an answer for that, but it's something they've seen. So I don't believe it's just breast cancer. I think that when we don't forgive people, when we obsess over things, when we have anger in us, it can change the immune system. And we know that God says in the Bible, how can I forgive you if you haven't forgiven someone else? And so forgiveness is very important. And I'm told that that can be a risk factor for breast cancer in ladies. Colorectal cancer, risk factors, family history, physical inactivity, obesity, high diet in red or processed. What are the causes as we look at cancers? Diseases including cancer start and grow when the immune system is depressed or malfunctioning. I believe one of the most important things we need to do for our health is to keep the immune system high. I find three things that wipe out the immune system. I call them the 3 S's. There's more, there's a number of more, but as I rank order, I find these 3 items devastating on the immune system. Number 1, stress. Number 2, sugar. Number 3, sleep deprivation. All 3 of those can wipe out your immune system and make you more prone to cancer or the common cold. Therefore, anything which suppresses the immune system can help the growth of cancer. So as you look at your immune system, are you, I would take an invoice. Your immune system right now. You have a healthy immune system. If you don't have a healthy immune system, that might be something you need to prioritize on, because it makes you much more prone to getting cancer. Suppressed immune system. These items can include poor nutrition, stress, as we talked about before. It's interesting. I just left a meeting with several buddies of mine this afternoon. One of them is speaking at a camp meeting. And after dinner, we sat there, and one of them is a neurologist. And he and I presented a program last year on stress and the immune system. And we know that Neil Nedley, in his book Proof Positive, says that 1 minute of anger can wipe out your immune system significantly for 6 hours. So as I was talking with Arvo before we presented that lecture, and I was with Arvo this afternoon, and I said, Arvo, let's look physiologically. You're a neurologist. You specialize in the brain function. If what Neil says in the book Proof Positive is true, that 1 minute of anger can wipe out the immune system for 6 hours significantly, physiologically, is stress very similar to that 1 minute of anger? He said, absolutely. So I said, could I change words? Would it be appropriate physiologically for me to say 1 minute of stress can significantly wipe out the immune system for 6 hours? He said, absolutely. Poor elimination, bowels, kidneys, livers, lungs, and skin. How often do you have a bowel movement? I remember when I was director of a clinic outside of Washington, D.C., and I would sit down, and these ladies would come in out of New York City, the lady, and I'd ask them, as I was doing their history, I'd say, how many bowel movements do you have a day? And they look at me like, what are you talking about bowel movements for? Well, it's very important. Bowel, how often are your bowels moving? I had a lady come in one time, and she was having some problems, she said. I said, what kind of problems? I have some abdominal pain sometime. I need some help to have bowel movements a little more often, maybe. I said, how often do you have a bowel movement? She said, once every 3 weeks. 3 weeks? Yes. I looked at her stomach. It was not distended. It was very trim. She looked like an executive secretary, dressed very well, very trim. And I said, how long has this been going on? She said, quite a while. I said, every 3 weeks you have a bowel movement? Yes. Can you imagine? I have people that come in every 2 weeks, 1 week. It's not uncommon for people to come in to see me and they're not having bowel movements, but every 3 to 5 days. Had a family come in one time. This has been a number of years ago. A lady and father brought their little son in. He was about 10 years old, and they said, he won't drink water. Can you help him drink water? And I said, what can I do? I've got to get this little boy's attention. And I asked the mother, I said, can I be graphic? She says, I don't care what you do. I want my boy to drink water. I said, okay. I said, can you imagine going to the bathroom and having a bowel movement and then taking a straw and drinking out of the toilet? And the mother's eyes got big, the father's eyes get big, and the son's eyes get big. Like, what? I said, well, that's what's happening when you don't drink water. My boy goes, what do you mean? I said, well, see what happens, the hypothalamus in the brain identifies you're dehydrated and some more water in the feces. It's true that the colon absorbs water and absorbs fluids, but when you're dehydrated, you suck more fluids out of the feces than what you should. And the mother said, do you have some water I can get from you? For herself. And so what happens is when we do not have good peristalsis, and when we don't see, we should have as many bowel movements a day as we have meals a day. And there's actually some today that say we should have one more. So if you eat 2 meals a day, you should have 2 to 3 bowel movements. If you have 3 meals a day, you should have 3 to 4 bowel movements, at least 3. or 2 if it's 2 or 3 meals. And when the feces stays in there over 24 hours, you start increasing your risk of colorectal cancer. And even just other cancers from just the toxins. Your kidneys working right. Are you drinking adequate water? Where you're keeping that urine not yellow, not almost. I've seen urine before I couldn't even see through it as I looked in the cup to look at it. I could not even see my finger on the other side of the cup. It was just so dark and cloudy. They didn't drink enough water. Insufficient exercise can be a cause of cancer. Exposures to toxins, amalgam fillings. I went to my dentist the other day. I had a tooth give way on me, and he had to do some repair on it. And I said, I just read a book on dentistry. Have you ever seen it? And I showed it to him. He goes, oh, yes, that's a good book. I said, in there, the author of this book, and it's actually a textbook. And the author states that an amalgam, which is it's a mercury silver filling that's back in one of your molars. If you have an amalgam filling there, it can be as much mercury as is in a thermometer. Is that true? He says, yes, that's true. He says, mercury in an amalgam, you're 50 to 52% mercury. Now in the book, which was written several years ago, it was 40 to 50. So it's increased to 50, 52 now, he said, percent mercury in an amalgam. And you can have off-gassing of that amalgam, mercury. It's interesting. When we were kids, we'd play with mercury. We've now found there's problems, with mercury. Tobacco can suppress your immune system. Pesticides can suppress your immune system. Poor health habits. And that y'all studied there, I believe, the 8 laws of health. And we find that if we follow those 8 laws of health, we're less prone to suppress our immune system. How to proactively address cancer. How do you proactively address cancer? The basic laws of health: nutrition, exercise, adequate water. And back to exercise, Duke University, Dr. Walter Kempner at Duke University. Remember when we were kids, we would we'd have morning recess after dinner. Now I'm a country boy, and we call dinner the noon meal. We'd have recess after dinner, and we'd have recess in the afternoon. And then in the afternoon, we'd play, have chores, whatever. And we exercise 4 times a day at least. And at Duke, they found that as an adult, we need to exercise 4 times a day. So if you went to Dr. Kempner there at Duke, he would have his patients exercise 4 times a day. I don't care if it's 5 minutes 4 times a day, 4 times a day. But the goal is, let's get it up to 20 minutes 4 times a day. Very important for stimulating the blood flow, stimulating the lymphatic system, the sewer system in the body. Adequate water, adequate sunshine. Sunshine is very, very important for the immune system. The vitamin D level is important. We know there's a direct relationship between vitamin D and someone's immune system. Dr. Arvo Khanna, I was with today, he tells all of his patients, his specialties in brain function, that he wants their vitamin D at least 60 for good brain function. For immune system, you want to look at about 80 to 100 for good immune system. Temperance is just making the right decision. Making the right decisions of not smoking, not drinking, not doing illicit drugs. But could it also be other things, like the music you listen to? Could that affect your immune system? Could it be what you read, what you watch on TV? Could social media affect your immune system? It's interesting. The Surgeon General just came out and said that you know, remember when we were kids, or actually back in the 70s, the Surgeon General came out and said that that tobacco was harmful. Well, just as of late, the Surgeon General just came out and said that social memory is dangerous for children. It increases the risk of depression and increases the risk of anxiety. There's a lot of things that we can do from a temperance standpoint, making wrong decisions that can affect our immune system, that can help us proactively cancer or address cancer. Fresh air, getting our rest at night. So very important. The hours before midnight, or twice the hours after midnight. We now know from Harvard that the brain, from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, it does a deep clean. From 10 o'clock to midnight, it does a thorough clean. If you're not asleep by 9 o'clock, it's just not doing its job. We didn't know the brain had a lymphatic system when I was in school, but now we do. It's called the lymphatic system. Very important to get our sleep at night. Again, the hours before midnight are worth twice the hours after midnight. We need 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep, Harvard says, but Harvard's flirting with 8, and I expect Harvard to go just straight 8. We know in the Breezel-Belloc study of 6,900 people, so over a 15-year period in Alameda County, California, 6,900 people, that's a lot. It found that in this 15-year study, it found that less than 8 hours of sleep a night, you die quicker. More than 9 hours of sleep a night, you die quicker. Sweet spot there is 8 hours of sleep, somewhere between 8 and 9 hours in that period, that 8-hour period. You live longer. And it's not just the hours of sleep or the hours before midnight. It's also, do you have contiguous sleep? Are you getting REM sleep? Men, are you waking up 5, 6, 7 times a night to go to the bathroom because you're having prostate issues? Ladies, you're waking up and you're worrying about the kids, and you fall back to sleep and worry about the kids more, and fall back to sleep and worry about the kids more. We need that REM sleep. If we're not getting REM sleep, then it affects our immune system, which can affect cancer. Trust in divine power. That's the most important. That is the power amongst all these other 7, trusting in God. Very, very important. The goals, number 1, trust in God. That is where the power is. 2, do a body cleanse. You can cleanse the body. There's various ways of doing body cleanses. You can do juicing. You want, say, liver cleanses. There's a number of different ways to cleanse the body, to get the toxins out, heavy metals out. Vegetable juicing is a great way to cleanse the body, but also it gives the body copious amounts of nutrients. I remember I had a lady come. She called me. It was 2000. In October of 2000. And she called me and she said, my doctor just diagnosed me with a very rare type of cancer, and it's never been healed using chemotherapy, radiation, any type of conventional medicine. He told me just go home. I'm nursing my 8th child. He told me just to go home. She says, I have to live. I have 8 children. I have a husband to take care of. Will you take me? I said, sure. She weaned the child. She came November and December. She went home just right before Christmas. And the oncologist there in Virginia Beach, Virginia, couldn't find any cancer. It was totally gone. She's still alive today. And that's been 22.5 years now. The major thing we did there, we did juicing, vegetable juicing. It's not the only thing, but we did vegetable juicing as one of the items. Juicing is like Hyperal, TPN. It just gives nutrients to the blood, to the body very quickly. It's in the blood within 20 minutes. It's very fast. Hydration, drinking plenty of water is very important to fight cancer. How much water do we need to drink? We know that University of California tells us, at Davis tells us that a half a gallon of water a day. That's 4 water bottles. Up to 128 pounds, a person needs 4 water bottles, but that's just to sit on the couch. But if they're over 128 pounds, it's body weight divided by 2, that many ounces, unless you're just way overweight, and there's another figure. But That's not the normal. So typical out there today, what we're hearing is body weight divided by 2. If you weigh 200 pounds, you need how many ounces? 100 ounces. That's to sit on the couch. If you're busy, if you're doing gardening, if you're working in the yard, you need another quart. I'm a firefighter, and the state of Tennessee tells me that I need a gallon of water a day proactively in case there's a house fire going to. And then I need to drink more water in rehab. It's something I've done. I'm a volunteer fireman. I've done it. I started it back in 42 years ago. It's like to help out the local community. But then it's not just body weight divided by 2. You can still be body weight divided by 2 plus extra and still be dehydrated. There's a guy who was friends with Einstein. He was a physicist, another genius. And he found that when you drink more than 3 to 4 ounces of water at a given time, it causes the liquid to go into free flow. It's called free flow, and it goes to the bladder, and you urinate it off. And so he found if you'll just take a swig of water, a mouthful, just like that, say 3 to 4 times every 30 minutes throughout the day. Now, that doesn't include when you first get up in the morning, you want to drink, a pint to a quart of water to flush the night before. That's free flow. And that flushes the bladder, the urinary tract from the night before. You don't count that water. It's flushing it. You drink it all at once with the lemon in it, warm water to stimulate peristalsis. But the rest of the water you drink throughout the day, you want to just take a mouthful about 3 to 4 times every half hour, except, he said, 15 minutes before you eat, while you eat, to an hour after you eat, because that affects digestion. And as we do that, we find people are much, much more hydrated. Wheatgrass, amazing stuff. Wheatgrass is very, very good as you're addressing cancer. Teas, there's all kinds of teas. You want teas that kill cancer. You want teas that purify the blood. That's interesting, though. When I look at the teas that kill cancer and the teas that purify blood, they're usually the same ones. You want teas that build the immune system. You want teas that increase lymphatic flow. So there's different types of teas. Some of my favorite, Padiarco, that's P-A-U space D-apostrophe A-R-C-O, Padiarco, a great herb. Padiarco is like Pac-Man. It loves eating cancer cells. It's also good to shrink the prostate if you have an enlarged prostate. But I like using it for cancer. It's tremendous. There's another one called burdock root. Another one, chaparral. But don't start with chaparral. Chaparral's nasty, and if you start with chaparral, you probably won't drink another tea. But start on it a little later because it's really good to kill cancer cells. Calendula, or calendula, as some people say. And then there's a mix of teas called Asiac tea, E-S-S-I-A-C, Asiac tea. It's a blend of teas by the Canadian American Indians. And it is very powerful. They found many years, the Canadian Indians have found that it kills cancer. Poultices. You can do your poultices from your teas over the affected area. You can do charcoal poultices over the affected area. You can do castor oil packs over the affected area. There's a number of poultices you can use for cancer. Walk outside. Walking is really important if you can walk. Increases lymphatic flow. See, remember the old 442, the old Cutlass 442? It had a dual exhaust. Our cells have a dual exhaust. It's got one that exhausts out through the blood and one exhausts out through the lymphatic system. Exercising, walking, increases both of those exhaust systems. You want to get rid of that exhaust, that poisons, that waste from cells. You don't want to just sit and hang out for a while. Exercise increases that. jump on a mini trampoline. Jumping on a mini trampoline is phenomenal. If I don't catch it, I'll catch it in a minute. There it is, rebounding, trampoline. A mini trampoline increases the lymphatic flow tenfold. What it does is it turns your lymphatic pumps on times 10. When a person has cancer, I encourage them to jump on a mini trampoline for 5 minutes. You can just do a health bounce, but 5 minutes every waking hour. See, jumping on a mini trampoline for 5 minutes increases the white count by 300%. And so if you bounce on it for 1 hour, so if you do that every waking hour, you've increased your white cell count 300% while you're awake. You say, but Walt, I got to go to work. It's true. If you got a job, you can take your mini trampoline to the office, do it. Buy a second one for the office. Bounce on every ability. If you work at home, you can bounce on it at home. Or if you aren't able to, let's say you work at a factory and you come home, bounce on it before you go to work, bounce on it when you come back from work. Fever treatments. Fever treatments are interesting. We were doing fever treatments at the clinic, and I read a book from Loma Linda Medical School by a guy by the name of Dr. Thomas, Dr. Charles Thomas. In there, Dr. Thomas said that fever treatments increase the white cell count, not 300% like a mini trampoline, but 700%. I didn't believe it. So I had my nurses draw labs on a number of patients when we did fever treatments. And Dr. Thomas was exactly correct. At 5 hours after the treatment, it peaked at 7-fold. Dr. Harold Cherney at Eden Valley found that it didn't come back to normal, the white count that is, until 3 days. We encourage people to do fever treatments, say 6 days a week. They can take off for Sabbath if they want to. They can do it after sundown, Saturday night if they want to. But another key treatment on fever treatments is not just doing the fever treatment. You want to also lay down for 2 hours after the fever treatment, is what Dr. Thomas found. Now, the fever treatment is that you don't really have a fever. What you're doing is you're getting in water or in a sauna that brings your temperature up to oral temperature up to 102 to 104 with an ice pack on your head. But you have it for 102 to 104 for 30 minutes. And then you wash off and go get in bed for 2 hours. It's kind of like being in a double boiler. Far infrared. It's an amazing tool. Is phenomenal. It's an infrared sauna or infrared light that you don't see it red. Near infrared, mid infrared, you see that, but far infrared, you can't see it. It's outside of your eye spectrum. Honeybees can see it, insects can see it, but we can't. But in China, they use it for cancer. In Japan and Korea, they use it for cardiovascular disease. We use it for all kinds of things, for bone healing to cancer to just all kinds of issues. It's used here in America. Good friend of mine, Dr. George Kim, has it in his office. Actually, he has multiple units in his office that he treats his patients with. It's amazing for treating all kinds of health issues, including cancer. Allicin is a component of garlic. Takes 24 cloves of garlic to make 1 drop of allicin. We call it AlliMed, ALLI. Antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal, antiparasitic, antimicrobial. Blows the doors off vancomycin. It's used for all kinds of things. Physicians use it for MRSA, for C. diff, H. pylori, Lyme disease. My youngest son had Lyme disease. He had it for 10 years. 12 years ago, a little over 12 years ago, we used the AlliMed, and he's now been, as of March this year, we just passed March, he's been 12 years Lyme disease free. Allicin is tremendous. It also is good for building the immune system. That's why physicians use it for cancer. Food grade hydrogen peroxide. Now be careful. Listen to this very carefully. Peroxide that you buy in the grocery store and the drugstore, you cannot use internally. It has a stabilizer. It has to be food grade hydrogen peroxide, 35%. It's amazing on what it does when addressing cancer. MSM and vitamin C. MSM opens the cells and taken 30 minutes before the vitamin C, and it helps to the vitamin C to get in there and be more effective in killing the cancer. Remember, vitamin C only has a half-life of 30 minutes. So you want to do vitamin C multiple times throughout the day. Go to bowel tolerance, come back to tolerance, go up to a loose stool, then come to bowel tolerance and stay there. When you start having a loose stool again, that's a good thing. It means you're getting better. Then cut back another 10%. Bee stinging. Bee stinging. When Mary Lou had breast cancer, it was getting large. It'd go away very small. In imaging, it would be about the size of half the size of a pea. Then it'd come back and it'd be as big almost as an egg, as a chicken egg. But it's big, other bird egg. I mean, just under the size of a chicken egg. And it was back and forth and back and forth. And finally, I asked a friend of mine who's a German physician, practiced medicine in Germany and Austria and Switzerland. I said, Sam, what do I need to do? It's just not, it's coming back. It's coming back and goes away. He said, sting her. So we did. We stung her for 14 days. And that is when we saw the turn. And she's been now cancer-free for 15 years. A lady came in just several weeks ago, and she had breast cancer, and she did bee stinging, and you can't even, it's gone. You can't even see it now. Essential oils. Dr. George, I'll think of it in a minute. He did a lot of work on essential oils. Jorge, that's terrible. I can't think of his last name. And he found that frankincense and lavender, essential oil placed over cancer areas are very effective. He actually found that at National Institute of Health showed where lavender essential oil has the same chemical as chemotherapy drug, some chemotherapy drugs. So that's a few things you can look at for cancer. When people come in and they ask me, Walt, what do I do? I tell them, I don't know. I had a friend call me, and I'll finish with this. I had a friend call me 2.5 years ago. We went to school together in high school and in college. She was a year behind me. And she called me in January 2 years ago. And she said, Walt, call sis. She's not doing well. And her sister and I were classmates all through high school and college. And she's now a medical doctor. Her husband's a medical doctor. I also went to school with him also in college. We were classmates. And she said she's not doing good. And so I called her. And I said, what's going on? She says, Walt, I ain't doing good. I said, what is it? She says, well, I knew something was going on Thanksgiving and Christmas, but the kids were coming in and I just didn't pay attention to myself. I was just taking care of the family. In January, I decided to get things checked out. She says, I have a very, very bad case of cancer of the breast. It's metastasized to the liver, metastasized to the lymphatic system. She said that if I do everything, she practices medicine down in Southern California. She said, if I do everything, they've told me I will live maybe till June, but I will not, definitely will not see July. She says, Walt, I have to stay alive. My grandkids and my kids are dependent on it. I need to, because I need to share Jesus with my grandkids and my kids more. They're not ready. I said, I get it. So I sent her a list of things, such as I just shared with you. And she got it and she said, Walt, what do I do? I said, I don't know. She said, what? I said, I don't know what to do. I said, but God does. I said, you're a praying woman. Pray. Ask God what to do. And then call me back. Listen to the Holy Spirit. I mean, you pray when you're buying a car. You pray when you're buying a house. And if you're impressed, no, ain't the car to buy or not the house to buy, you don't buy it. Well, do it with your health. And that's what she did. She asked God of this items that we just went over, you and I just went over, what should she do? So she called me back. She said, Walt, the Holy Spirit has impressed me. I need to do these items. And she did them. Check once in a while, the middle of June. Remember, she wasn't supposed to live past June. Middle of June, the second week of June. Towards the end of the second week of June, she had an MRI, a CT, and a PET scan. All three showed perfectly clear, zero cancer. The third week in June, a friend came to her who is a surgeon, said, you don't understand, you need to have a double mastectomy. The type of cancer you have is very dangerous. She said, I believe God got rid of it. He goes, you don't understand, this is dangerous stuff. She said, okay, go in there and look. If you see something, take care of it. If you don't, close it up. Well, she had an advantage. Her husband was the pathologist, so they definitely know what he found. He went in and he only found perfectly new tissue. She's still alive today, 2.5 years later, still no cancer. When you look at items, don't go off of what I just shared with you. Ask God. God's the medical director. Ask him what you need to do and listen to him. And again, as I said at the very beginning, God answers prayer, but in his timing. And so we must be patient. So let's see.